David Johnson was my friend, and he died on October 19th. I was there the night it happened, and I think I carry some of the responsibility for his death.
As a doctor, I spend a fair amount of time in the emergency room of our local hospital. Every night I'm in the emergency room. There's usually 1 or 2 patients that come in having had a problem resulting from the overusage of alcohol. Automobile accidents, fights, so forth. If we figure the number of weeks that school is in session and multiply that by several incidents a week in which the people are requiring medical care as a result of the improper use of alcohol, we can see about the extent of the problem as far as students and other individuals are concerned. Basically, on the night of the incident, Dave had been out for the so-called Death March associated with the initiation of one of the campus fraternities. Part of the initiation ritual, as I understand it, was to make the rounds of the local taverns until the person became so intoxicated that they could not operate on their own. Under most circumstances, when people get too much to drink, they will stop before they are able to consume a lethal level, and the worst thing that happens is the next morning they have a headache and a typical hangover. However, in Dave's case, several things unfortunately happened.
While on duty during the morning of October 18th, approximately 9:22 a.m., I was directed to a Water Street apartment to check on a man found unconscious. An ambulance arrived in the scene approximately the same time. I was led to the front room of an apartment where I found a body lying on his back. It was determined that the subject was not breathing and that he had apparently expired some time before the ambulance arrived, as there was a considerable discoloration in his face and torso. The body was cold, still on arrival, and the coroner's office was immediately notified, and the acting coroner arrived at about 9:30 a.m. to carry out his end of the investigation. Both the body and surrounding areas were photographed, and then the body was transported to a local hospital where an autopsy was conducted.
Autopsy specimens were received by the laboratory on October 20th. The victim's blood contained more than 4 milligrams per milliliter, which is generally consistent with depression of respiration, peripheral collapse, subnormal temperature, and death.
I remember the night. There was a group around getting ready just to start the march. And Dave was the only one, as you know, pledging. I waited till he got up the stairs. I knew about how old he was. I didn't know the exact year. I asked him how old he was. He said 22. I said, how do you feel? He just smiled. And he said, I'm nervous a little bit. I asked him if he'd had supper. I think back on this, and I told him not to worry, that things are going to be all right. I said, don't worry, don't get scared. This is a psychological thing, a lot of it. Everybody here likes you. They're your friend.
In checking the circumstances of the death, it was learned that the deceased was the pledge of a university fraternity. And on the night of October 17th, he had joined with several other members of this fraternity for the final night of pledging. The ceremony apparently consisted of drinking alcoholic beverages at several bars. The activity started around 6:30 p.m., so between 6:30 and 9:30 of October 17th, the deceased consumed approximately 29 drinks of beer, liquor, and wine. At 9:30 p.m., the subject was semi-conscious and had to be carried by the fellow fraternity members to his apartment. The fraternity members then left the apartment and left the subject alone. I called the coroner. The coroner told me he would stop at the hospital after 3 p.m., take care of a death certificate, The deceased owned a VW vehicle which is still parked on the square and will be taken to the annex when the keys are located.
I was one of the ones that first heard about the death, so I just happened to be down working at the time. And they came in and said that David died, and it was a block away, so I ran right over. I was on the scene when the ambulance came, and I admit to having a few dreams in that sense. It says, made me do a lot of thinking about, I get a little concerned, more concerned than what I ever was when I see someone really drunk to the point of passing out. You're pretty glad to see him the next morning. You just don't know what really can happen. Well, you know what can happen now, but it has been something that we all think about. It's nothing we are really going to forget.
Maybe not tell you straight out that you're drinking too much at the bar, because that I don't think I would be able to withstand myself. I'd rather have someone come up to me and say, you know, let's go. I don't feel like I want to stay here anymore. You want to go home? But when you've got a friend that you go down to the square with, or to a bar or any place especially, that friend will say and take care of you. They will tell you, and they'll take care of you.
After his death, I started looking at myself. Everything seemed so senseless what I was doing. Like going to the square and you'd go up to a girl and pour beer all over her and try to get to meet her. It all seemed so childish, so stupid. After his death, I started not using alcohol as a crutch anymore. During that period, I got to be closer friends with his roommates, who were still there, and to his sister. And we did a lot of things after that. We had a lot of good times by not going down to the square.
It's kind of an attitude that gets built into you as a freshman. Sometimes, you know, like your first activities, for example, like I don't want to put down the halls or anything, are wing parties. I think more often it should be some kind of a discussion or some kind of a speaker or an activity or a fun kind of a thing. And maybe alcohol can be there because alcohol can be fun. But that's what I mean about what's the timing of the decision, because I think it depends on a couple of things, you know, your peer group and your freshmen especially.
I think they get you rely on that to get your inhibitions out a lot of times. And these come here and some are pretty scared to be in college. And to get to know other people and get in the social things, they start drinking. Of course you feel braver, and you can go up to people and start talking. And that's really too bad that it has to be like that.
There's nothing wrong with not drinking because, well, you look at how many bottles of booze are made and how many half barrels, you're never going to be able to drink them all.
In this town, I would say there is great pressures. Well, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but there is a lot of drinking. You hang around with people that drink, and you can find almost all the same people at almost the same time every morning, afternoon, or nights at the bars. I go in and I talk to them. A lot of talking and socializing goes on. I guess there is a lot of peer pressure that you just have to draw a line.
For myself, I just didn't want to go out drinking all the time like I had before. It was just a matter of saying no to your friends. I think sometimes they wouldn't understand. And there's a few guys, even now, on my old wing, who resent me for not going out and being what I used to be, going out and drinking all the time.
You're asked right away, you know, what are you pumping? Or what are you having? And if you don't, I guess there's nothing against it. I mean, no one laughs at you if you don't. I've never had that.